So I said we'd have a chance to look into more detail on the Isle of Man Social Attitude Survey 2017. Chris Thomas, Policy Reform, can take us through some of it. I mean, we could just flick pages and you can pick up the highlights really, because I mean there's so much here. But households, where you were born, less than 50% from the Isle of Man, mostly from England. Nothing unusual there. I'm taking it.
That's right, and this tells us a bit more about what the social attitude survey is, because the answers there are different slightly from the census, but the census is done less frequently and in a different way. So this sort of information is just helpful for us later on in terms of some of the other questions. Did
anything throw up here that slightly surprised you on the housing types, the age of people with the mortgages, how much income was coming in? Was there any sort of surprises that for you?
Well, not. Yes, there is, but also because we got this data linked to the attitudes, we can then use it for public policy. So all this data is anonymous. Nobody has to worry about their own data, but because we have answers to other questions linked to where people are living, how much income they have, that makes it incredibly rich from a public policy point of view, because we can use the data ourselves to think through about how our policies are being perceived and also how they're helping people.
Okay. You help me out, because I'm not the world's best in these sort of things. But
I put my glasses on.
You get your glasses on. I've got mine on. The richer you are, the better you feel. Is that how I'm reading that one?
That's correct.
Yeah? Isn't that an interesting thing that if you got more money, and we're talking like over £125,000 or something like that, you definitely feel better off than if you're earning just £12,500.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm taller than my dad, and I'm sure you were taller than your parents, and so on. So there are lots of manifestations of that.
Okay.
The most interesting, the most worrying thing is that 40% of people in the Isle of Man don't perceive themselves to be challenged financially, and when we see that and juxtapose that against the impact it's having on health, any politician is going to take note and make sure that for the next 4 years of this House of Keys, the government's got to be focused on that very point, that if the financial situation is causing health issues, we need to address the issues, and that's why government is very much focused on increasing the earnings of people and dealing with the cost of living.
Here's what I was a bit surprised about, that self-employed was actually so low. I mean, it's not even, it's about less than 5%. Most people are in a full-time actual job up at over 57 or something like that percent.
Yeah, and we could get that data. We could get that data from other sources as well. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm glad that the way that we've presented the information brings that sort of thing to people's attention, and it's got all sorts of dimensions. Should we not be working with the self-employed more and thinking about their costs of doing business, and also how easy it is and what impact it has on your life? That's something that's come up very much in my discussions with younger people, because there are a lot of younger people who seem to be prepared to take risks, but they feel as if the way that we organise government provision is stacked against them.
0-hour contract is pretty well nothing. I mean, I was surprised. I thought that was the way the world was moving in so many areas, but not on the Isle of Man, it seems.
No, we do have lots of people who choose not to have a fixed amount of obligation, a fixed amount of hours as an obligation for various reasons, including in government. We have lots of people in that. In part, we're trying to deal with that in government. So people would have noticed this month that the amount of full-time employed people went up compared to a year ago, and a significant part of the explanation for that is that people have moved over from these type of agency bank arrangements to being full-time employed, which must be a good thing.
And we've got very good numbers here on perceived job security. Is that in line with other places? I mean, again, I haven't got one to compare with. I mean, if you looked at Jersey or the UK, would that be on the par?
No, I think
people feel okay.
I think people do feel okay. I mean, you've pointed out in an earlier interview that we're not as happy here as some other places, but perhaps that's just the Manx way. When it comes down to having optimism about the future and having security in jobs and reacting to it, there does seem to be.
But I'm thinking anyone that ticks a box, they're always going to be slightly more. Not that. You don't think there's always that element in anything. But why is
it that 34%? We're 34th on the happiness index, but the UK, and we all know that they're even more miserable over there. We thought are happier than us. Why is that then?
It's sampling, isn't it? It's down to how many people make up the samples. Okay. Income. Everyone's roughly around the 40 to £1,250 as a household income,
Yeah.
gross amount of money coming in.
And that's going to shock lots of people.
That is amazing. I thought so that wouldn't be.
And that's at the heart of what we're trying to do with the means testing policy consultation, because we've got to make choices about whether we look at a person, as an individual, or in terms of who they live with as inside their household. And there's massive philosophical and practical issues involved in that. So I've noticed in the last week or so, lots of politicians have been taking the view that in principle I agree with the prescriptions and policy and the health policy, but it's got to go alongside means testing. But somebody else is doing that. Well, that somebody else is me as chair of my Social Policy and Children's Committee work, and we do have a lot of work to do, and households and household income is something that we need to measure and deal with.
Okay, we've got lots more. Hope everyone's enjoying this. We'll look at housing, I think, is the next one.
I think not. I think you're trying to make your least popular 5-minute clip of all time here, actually.
He's worried he's not going to get in the top 30 most viewed. Who knows? It might be. You never know. More coming up with Mr. Thomas.